Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're taking a deep dive into, well, a market that might sound completely out of left field, the global Manioc powder market.
Manioc powder, yeah. Doesn't immediately scream multi-billion-dollar industry, does it?
Not really,
Mm.
but you'd be surprised just how much this reveals about some fascinating global economic trends and some, well, serious growth stories.
And what's interesting here is we're not just pulling this out of thin air. We're drawing insights directly from excerpts of a comprehensive market analysis report.
Right.
All the numbers, the projections we'll discuss today, they're based on data sourced from cognitive market research. It's about understanding the story that data tells.
Exactly. And our mission really is to translate that story for you. We want to go beyond just, listing numbers and really get to the core of what these growth trajectories mean. Why is Manioc powder, of all things, a multi-billion-dollar market showing such, well, significant expansion? Let's dig in.
Okay, let's start with that big picture then, the global view. The source material shows a market that's already quite substantial.
How substantial are we talking?
Back in 2021, the global Manioc powder market generated sales revenue of almost $1.8 billion. Specifically, $1,795.45 million.
Right, nearly 1.8 billion. And the growth isn't marginal, is it? Looking just a few years out, the projection for 2025.
It's $2,481 million, so crossing that $2.4 billion mark pretty soon. But the real trajectory becomes clear when you look further out. By 2033, that figure is forecast to reach an impressive 4,737.33 million.
Okay, so we're talking about a market expected to more than double. Easily more than double in, what, just over a decade?
Precisely. The compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, for this global growth is reported at 8.421%.
Which, for a product like Manioc powder, feels like quite a significant clip. But, I mean, why? What's driving this? What industries or trends are potentially pushing this kind of value and growth?
Well, it's a good question. This specific excerpt doesn't detail all the drivers, but based on what we know about Manioc powder generally, it's incredibly versatile.
Okay.
It's a huge ingredient in the booming gluten-free food market, used as a thickener, a binder.
Right. Gluten-free is massive.
It is. And then you've got applications in pharmaceuticals, paper manufacturing, textiles, even as a raw material for industrial starches and biofuels.
So a lot of different uses.
Yeah, its natural properties, its availability, that likely contributes to this broad and growing demand across multiple sectors.
Okay, that context definitely helps frame the numbers.
Yeah.
So it's not just one thing, but sort of a whole basket of applications driving this global trend.
Seems that way.
All right, now let's take that impressive global growth and see how it breaks down regionally, starting with North America.
Sure. North America is already a major player. The market there was valued at $519.244 million back in 2021.
Okay, over $500 million.
And it's projected to grow to $1,289.5 million by 2033.
That works out to a pretty healthy North American CAGR of 7.981%. Still very solid growth, even if it's slightly below that global average we mentioned.
Very solid. And within North America, the United States is, well, it's by far the largest component. It was valued at over $400 million in 2021.
$408 million, yeah.
And forecast to exceed $1 billion by 2033. Its CAGR sits at 7.895%.
Okay. And how do its neighbors, Canada and Mexico, compare?
Well, they're smaller markets, naturally, but they also show strong expansion. Canada is projected to grow from roughly $72 million in 2021 to over $186 million by 2033. And interestingly, its CAGR of 8.361% is actually slightly higher than the U.S. figure.
Oh, interesting detail. Canada growing a bit faster relative.
Yeah, and Mexico's on a similar path. It's looking to nearly triple its market size from around $38 million to roughly $99 million by 2033, with a CAGR of 8.158%.
So good growth across the board in North America, then. Canada's showing maybe a particularly dynamic rate for its size.
Exactly.
Okay, moving across the Atlantic, let's explore the European market. How does that look?
Europe represents another, significant portion of the global market. It was valued at around $395 million in 2021.
Almost $400 million.
Yeah, with projections showing it will exceed $999 million by 2033. So nearly $1 billion.
That gives Europe an overall TAGR of 8.23%, right? Pretty much in line with the global momentum.
Right on track.
Which countries are leading the charge here in Europe?
The report highlights several key contributors by their projected value in 2033. Germany is expected to reach over $213 million.
Okay.
The UK, over $112 million, Russia, over $121 million, and France, around $94 million.
And what about their individual growth rates? Is there like a standout performer?
Germany's specific CAGR is highlighted. It's mentioned as the highest among those major European economies at 8.615%.
8.6%.
Yeah, so they appear to be leading the growth story, at least in the more established European markets, according to this data.
Makes sense.
The source also mentions solid growth in other countries like Italy, Spain, Sweden, Denmark, Switzerland. Values projected between roughly $38 million and $61 million by 2033.
It's interesting, isn't it, to see the variation even within one continent?
Absolutely. And something else that really jumps out in the European data is the rest of Europe category.
Ah, the collective group. What's happening there?
Well, this segment shows a pretty significant jump from about $70.7 million in 2021 to a projected $206.4 million in 2033.
That's substantial growth in that bucket.
It is. And it's backed by the highest CAGR in the entire European region, 9.148%.
9%.
Oh,
okay.
right.
So that suggests really dynamic, broad-based expansion across maybe numerous smaller or developing European economies, not just the big ones.
Exactly. Places like Luxembourg, for example, it's mentioned as projected to more than double its market size quite significantly from 2021 to 2033.
Fascinating. Okay, so we've seen solid, healthy growth in North America and Europe. Now let's pivot to the region the report indicates is, well, the most dynamic, Asia-Pacific.
Right. Asia-Pacific. This region is not only the largest existing regional market for Manioc powder.
It's already the biggest.
Yeah, but it also boasts a higher overall growth rate. It was valued at an impressive $655.339 million in 2021.
Over $650 million.
Yeah. And it's forecast to more than double, reaching $1,823.87 million by 2033.
A CAGR of 9.072% for the region. That puts it ahead of the global average and definitely ahead of the Western markets we just discussed.
Clearly leading the pack.
So who are the big drivers here? China and India, I assume?
Absolutely. China and India are the dominant players. China is projected to reach over $745 million by 2033.
Huge.
With a CAGR of 9.479%. India, while it was a smaller market back in 2021 at just under $119 million, is projected to reach over $353 million by 2033.
And I noticed, looking at the numbers, India's CAGR is actually slightly higher than China's in this forecast. It's 9.574%.
That's right. It's a key detail, isn't it? It really highlights its rapid ascent.
Yeah, very dynamic.
Yeah, exactly. The report also lists other countries contributing. Japan, South Korea, Australia, and Singapore and Southeast Asia as a whole are projected to be significant markets by 2033 as well, alongside Taiwan.
But okay, here's where the really explosive growth story in Asia-Pacific seems to lie, according to this data. The rest of APAC figures, they're absolutely striking.
They really are.
This category went from around, $46.9 million in 2021?
Yeah, under $50 million.
To a projected $158.7 million by 2033.
And its CAGR, a remarkable 10.979%.
10.9. That is the highest growth rate mentioned anywhere in this source material we're looking at.
It is. That double-digit CAGR.
Yeah.
It really underscores how rapidly the Manioc powder market is expanding beyond just the giants like China and India.
Right.
It suggests a real surge of demand in a wide range of other countries across the Asia-Pacific region. This segment is showing the most dynamic momentum, bar none.
Incredible. Okay, moving south now. Let's look at South America. What does the data show there?
South America also presents a picture of, pretty healthy growth. The market moves from around $109.5 million in 2021.
Okay, over 100 million starting point.
To a projected $350.6 million by 2033.
That's a strong CAGR too.
Yeah.
8.606%, slightly above the global average again.
Yep, very healthy.
Who's leading South American growth? Is it Brazil?
Brazil is highlighted as leading the region, yeah. Projected 2033 value of over $122 million.
Okay.
The report also mentions Argentina, Colombia, Peru, and Chile as significant contributors. And similar to other regions, that rest of South America category shows solid collective growth too, projected to reach over $126 million by 2033.
Okay, good growth there too. How about the Middle East? What's the picture?
The Middle East is a smaller market compared to the others we've discussed. It was valued at around $72.9 million in 2021.
And projected growth?
Projected to grow to roughly $168.6 million by 2033.
So still more than doubling in size over the period.
It is, yeah. It represents a CAGR of 6.654%. So while that's a lower growth rate than many other regions, it's still significant expansion over the forecast period.
Definitely not insignificant. Any specific countries mentioned?
Saudi Arabia is mentioned as the largest market there, projected to reach over $67 million by 2033. And then it lists countries like Turkey, UAE, Egypt, and Qatar following behind.
Got it. And finally, let's touch on Africa. What did the reports say there?
Africa represents the smallest regional market in this analysis, with sales around $43.4 million in 2021,
Fine.
forecast to reach just over $105 million by 2033.
So again, also expected to more than double its value.
Exactly. The report notes growth rates for Africa are around 7%, and the key areas driving this growth, according to the source, include Nigeria, South Africa, and that collective rest of Africa.
Okay, so putting all these numbers together, I mean, stepping back, what's the overall story the data from cognitive market research is telling us about this Manioc powder market?
Well, it paints a really clear picture, doesn't it? It's a global market experiencing robust, widespread growth across almost every single region, projected to roughly triple in value by 2033.
Triple, yeah.
And Asia-Pacific is the undisputed powerhouse, not just in terms of current size, but it's also leading the charge with the highest growth rates, particularly fueled by dynamism in India, China, and crucially, that rest of APAC's group.
Right, that double-digit growth there is key.
Mm.
And then we see North America and Europe as these big established markets, but still continuing to show strong, steady expansion. They provide a really significant base for the overall global market value.
Exactly. And regions like South America, the Middle East, and Africa, while starting smaller, are also contributing meaningful growth. It really indicates that the factors driving demand for manioc powder are truly global in nature, even if the pace varies quite a bit.
Yeah, that variation in growth rates across countries and regions, it isn't just noise, is it? It seems like a key characteristic, showing maybe diverse market penetration or adoption rates.
I think that's a good way to put it.
So we've taken quite a deep dive here into the global and regional data points for Manioc powder, drawing directly from that market analysis using the cognitive market research data.
It really demonstrates how looking closely at the numbers, even for what seems like a niche product, can unveil some pretty significant economic trends.
Absolutely. And maybe here's a final provocative thought for you, our listener, to consider. Given this really clear trajectory of increasing demand and value for manioc powder across such diverse global markets, driven by its varied uses, and particularly that explosive growth in developing regions, what does this suggest? What does it suggest about evolving global food systems, perhaps, or the increasing role of alternative crops like manioc, maybe even shifting centers of economic activity and consumption?
Yeah, what are the broader implications for agriculture, for trade, for industry worldwide? If a product like manioc powder is showing this kind of sustained dynamic expansion, something to think about. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're jumping into a market you might not think about every day, global manioc powder.
That's right. It sounds niche, maybe, but it's got some fascinating dynamics.
Absolutely. We've been looking at a market report from Cognitive Market Research, and, well, our mission today is to really unpack what's going on, what's driving it, what the roadblocks are, and, where things seem to be headed.
And it's interesting because it sits right at the crossroads of health trends, global economics, and even some neat processing tech.
Exactly. So let's start with the growth engines. What's really propelling this market?
Okay, well, a huge piece of it comes down to what people want to eat these days. There's this massive surge in demand for gluten-free and natural food ingredients.
Right. The whole gluten-free movement is still massive.
It really is. And manioc powder, which comes from the cassava root, it's a fantastic substitute for wheat flour. So it's perfect for people with celiac disease, gluten intolerance, or frankly, anyone just looking for cleaner plant-based options. Allergen-friendly, too.
You see it listed more and more on those kinds of products, but it's wider than just the health food aisle, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. The other big factor is just the growth of the food and beverage industry overall, particularly in developing economies. Manufacturers need ingredients that are, well, functional, versatile.
Functional meaning they perform well in recipes.
Exactly. Texture, binding, thickening. Manioc powder ticks a lot of boxes. You can use it in baked goods, snacks, sauces, even drinks. That kind of versatility makes it really attractive for big food companies.
And I guess technology helps get it from the root to a usable powder reliably.
That's the third leg, really. Advances in processing technology are key. Better methods mean more consistent quality, a longer shelf life.
Which makes it easier for large producers to use.
Precisely. Consistency and reliability are huge when you're sourcing ingredients at scale. These tech improvements make Manioc powder much more appealing for industrial use.
Okay, so strong demand from health trends and the general food industry, plus tech making production smoother. But, like anything global, there must be challenges. What are the main headwinds here?
There are definitely some significant ones. Probably the most basic is just getting enough raw material consistently. Limited availability.
You mean growing the cassava
Yeah.
itself?
Manioc farming is really vulnerable. Think droughts, floods, pests, diseases, they can seriously impact crop yields. This creates, instability in the supply chain.
Which sounds like it would make prices jump around.
Exactly. That leads straight into market volatility. When supply is uncertain and you've got growing demand, things like changes in trade policies or just bad weather can cause prices to swing pretty wildly.
That makes it risky for businesses, I'd imagine.
For sure. That kind of unpredictability can deter investment and make long-term planning kind of tricky.
And is the processing itself straightforward? Or is there more to it?
No, it's actually quite complex. Raw cassava root contains natural compounds, cyanogenic compounds, which can be toxic.
Oh, right. You have to remove those.
You absolutely do. It needs careful processing to make it safe to eat. And that requires specific equipment, specific know-how. It adds cost and complexity, which can be a real burden, especially for smaller scale producers who might not have the capital.
So, supply issues, price swings, complex processing, quite a few hurdles to navigate. Looking forward, though, what trends are shaping its future? What's emerging?
Well, sticking with consumer demand, there's a really strong push towards organic manioc powder.
Oh,
People want transparency. They want to know food is grown sustainably, without GMOs.
that whole traceability and sustainability angle is getting bigger
It
everywhere.
is, and organic certifications are becoming really important for market access. It lines up perfectly with the clean label trend, too.
Clean label, simple ingredients, nothing artificial.
That's the one. Consumers want short ingredient lists they can actually understand. Manioc powder, being a natural plant derivative, fits that bill really well. No chemical-sounding names.
And is technology still evolving? Finding new ways to use it?
Definitely. We're seeing advances beyond just basic processing. Things like using specific enzymes or controlled fermentation techniques.
To do what, exactly? Improve it somehow.
Yeah, to enhance its functional properties even more. So maybe improving the texture it gives to gluten-free bread, or how well it thickens a sauce, or creating unique properties for entirely new food applications. It's opening up more possibilities.
So it's a really dynamic picture. You've got these powerful drivers, health trends, industry growth, consumer values pushing for organic and clean label, and tech opening doors.
But balanced against these very real challenges, the tricky supply chain, the price volatility, the processing hurdles, it's a fascinating balance.
It really paints a picture of the complexities in our global food system, doesn't it? Maybe you, listening, have had manioc powder today without even knowing it, perhaps in a snack bar or some baked goods.
Or maybe now you'll spot it on an ingredients list and understand a bit more about the journey it took.
Yeah, so here's something to think about. How does the story of this one root vegetable powder, kind of humble on the surface, actually show us these bigger patterns? Patterns in global supply chains, how quickly consumer health ideas can reshape markets, and, well, all the hidden complexity behind the food that ends up on our plates every day.